Hi everyone, this is Dr. Chhoda and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. I'm redecorating a little bit. I have some incredible things planned because I got some fantastic input that I think you're going to enjoy as you start to see my entire setup start to change in upcoming videos. In this video, I'm going to go over some incredible comments from the US Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, and I do think we're living in an unbelievable world, an unbelievable climate where the US Treasury Secretary made the decision to essentially return some money to the Federal Reserve, money that was essentially allocated to create liquidity within the system. And I won't get too much into the weeds, but I want my viewers and subscribers to know that once this money is returned by the US Treasury back to the Federal Reserve, the next administration, in other words, let's say, Joe Biden, after the 20th of January, let's say Joe Biden gets inaugurated, what would happen is the Biden administration would then need to go back to Congress, go back to the House, go back to the Senate, which could be Republican controlled, and then say, hey, I need money. So what is happening here is money is being returned by the US Treasury to the Federal Reserve. Now, keep in mind, the Federal Reserve is simply a lender, but the US Treasury is the spender. The US Treasury decides how that money is allocated, what that money is set aside to do. The Federal Reserve cannot make that decision. So in this situation, if money is returned by the US Treasury to the Federal Reserve, basically now if the next administration wants money again, they have to go back to Congress and say, hey, please, approve the law so that money can then again be allocated from the Federal Reserve to the US Treasury. So I want our viewers and subscribers to understand that. On your screen, you'll see a tweet from Heather Long from the Washington Post, and Heather outlined some of the highlights of a pretty interesting conversation that US Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin had with CNBC this morning. I'll actually break down that rather fascinating interview with you. He also talked about stimulus, so I'll talk about that as well. So the US Treasury Secretary said, we are following the intent of Congress. He said, we need Congress to reappropriate these funds. In other words, Congress would need to come back together again to decide whether these funds need to be reallocated. So this is a rather interesting dynamic. I'm not saying that this is done for political reasons. If you want to come to that conclusion, be my guest. But what I am saying is that once this money is returned back to the Federal Reserve, the next administration would then again have to go through Congress, would then have to essentially get the cooperation of Democrats and Republicans in order to be able to reallocate this money should it need to be injected back into the economy. And so what the US Treasury Secretary also said is corporations don't need this extra money. We're saying to Congress, go spend this money and help small businesses and people that really need it. So you can see how this maneuver, if you will, or you can also say it was following the intent of Congress, because this money was supposed to be essentially returned back if it was not used. How this can essentially put the next administration in a bind, and at the same time, this sort of opportunity is being used by the US Treasury Secretary to say, hey, we have money. Let's just do a targeted stimulus package and let's do more paycheck protection programs. And also on your screen, you'll see a tweet from Heather Long. And Heather essentially said the big takeaway here is Congress needs to act ASAP. In other words, there's more pressure now on Congress to reallocate money, because this money, which could have been essentially kept where it was, assuming that they were able to get that permission to continue keeping it there. When I say they, I mean the US Treasury. This money now that is being returned, Congress needs to act again, which essentially, bottom line, could be the headache of the next administration. That is the thing that I think our viewers and subscribers need to understand. That is the unspoken truth of this situation. Heather writes, the economy clearly needs more stimulus. The Fed and the Treasury are calling for Congress to act. The Federal Reserve actually said that Congress needs to act, and the Federal Reserve actually went so far as to essentially say, hey, let's keep this money where it is. And the Federal Reserve normally does not contradict the US Treasury. So what is happening is just unbelievable. I mean, I can't tell you the number of unbelievable things that are happening this year. Worldwide pandemic, an economic crisis, a contentious election, no blue wave, no red wave, a contested election, a vaccine, and and now we have the Federal Reserve and the US Treasury being at odds with each other. I'm done with surprises for this year, guys, and I know you are as well, which is why I'm I'm trying to redecorate my office so I can focus on those little things that sort of take your mind off of some of these big picture things. But but the Federal Reserve would like to see these facilities extended. In fact, why don't we hear from the US Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who basically said, we are following the intention of Congress and we're simply doing what Congress intended in a pretty comprehensive interview today on CNBC. He covered many things. So this is going to be the first in a 2 or 3 part video series today that you'll see on our channel about comments from Steve Mnuchin. Let's roll the tape and listen to what Steve Mnuchin had to say.
The Treasury and Fed have worked incredibly close together, and these programs have been enormously successful. And let me just remind people, back in March when the markets were stuck, even before the CARES Act was passed, the Fed, working with the Treasury, we activated the commercial paper facility, the money market facility, we activated the primary dealer facility. These were all done with money that the Treasury has in the Exchange Stabilization Fund. And then as part of the CARES Act, and again, we couldn't be happier, enormous bipartisan support on the CARES Act, 96-0, 100-0. Congress entrusted Treasury with $500 billion. It was really unprecedented. And that money could be used to work with the Federal Reserve and with direct loans to airlines and national security companies. And we announced a series of other facilities with the Fed. And as you recall, I was in the room. I negotiated these documents. I worked very closely with Mike Crapo and Pat Toomey. We negotiated this specific language. And on the Fed facilities, the $450 billion that Congress gave me, it was very clear that the congressional intent is it expires on December of this year. It's very clear in the law. So Chair Powell and I have been discussing this for the last few weeks in deference to the Fed. I said that the facilities that we funded with pre-CARES funding, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, I would extend. So commercial paper, money markets, primary dealers, things like that, for the abundance of caution, even though they're not being used. And the CARES money that expires at December 31st, that was merely simply following the intent of the law. So it wasn't a decision on whether we needed these or we didn't need these. But let me just put this in perspective. All those other facilities, we only have about $25 billion of loans outstanding. And to the extent that we need to do more, we have over $750 billion of firepower between what's in the Exchange Stabilization Fund and what the Federal Reserve can do going forward. These can be reactivated. So markets should be very comfortable that we have plenty of capacity left. And Mark Meadows and I will be working with Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and hopefully the Speaker. There's $500 billion of money that Congress appropriated that is now expiring. We have $130 billion of PPP money sitting around. We need Congress to reappropriate these funds. We could do $500 billion of fiscal response immediately that won't cost taxpayers any more money, and let's spend it on small business PPP loans. There are a lot of people who are still struggling. Although parts of the economy are roaring back, parts of the economy, small businesses, restaurants, travel, and other need more help. And that's where we want to put this money. But this was a very simple thing. We're following the intent of Congress.
That was the first segment. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. You'll also find a link to all our resources in the description section below. Now, Mnuchin also went on to say that this money, which essentially he's basically saying, hey guys, don't freak out. This money, we're following the intent of Congress. We're being prudent and returning the money back because the money is not needed. But why not reallocate some of the money that hasn't been used for a targeted stimulus? Now, keep in mind that we've been talking about a $2 trillion stimulus package. The chances of that happening are next to zero right now. But we can see the Republicans essentially digging in their heels and pretty much putting the Democrats in what I would call a checkmate situation right now and saying, hey, look, we're returning money because we didn't need it, but why don't we reallocate the money towards stimulus? And they can then get what they want while the Democrats are left wondering, whoa, what happened to our $2 trillion stimulus? This is what I call the dynamic endgame that is happening right now as we get closer to a potential stimulus package leading up to the December 11th deadline for funding the government, the omnibus bill, which is being discussed. House Speaker Pelosi also did pass some comments on that today. But you are on my channel because you get this actual news, you get the truth, you get groundbreaking news. You have me analyzing complex information and giving it to you. So please, take a moment of your time to click the subscribe button, to ignite the notification button, because the name of our channel is Ignition Time. And please, if you learn something new, please click the like button. Let's jump into the second segment of this interview with the US Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, and let me know what you think. Let's roll the tape.
Well, if it's simple, sir, what I want to do is play just a bit of an interview with Chicago Fed President Evans that we just had, that Steve Leisman had, that I think puts the issue in a different light. And if we can just listen to that, sir, it will really help things.
I think our, 13.3 facilities have been very helpful. They, perform a backstop role for, when markets find themselves in a more challenged situation, when Main Street lending could be impeded. The banks have been important for helping out. There's a lot of design put in place, and I think that backstop role might be important, for quite some time, so it's disappointing.
So, sir, I mean, obviously, Mr. Evans is not necessarily speaking for the chairman, but is a very distinguished member of the Fed and says that this is disappointing. How do we react to that?
Well, nothing against him, and I watched the interview when it was live. What I would say is, I'd ask him to go read the law, which is very clear, or ask him to call up, the chair of the committee. It was very clear. Now, I think what the Fed has said, and again, Chair Powell and I have discussed this extensively, if it weren't for the fact that these were expiring, all of the things being equal, the Fed always likes to keep their tools outstanding. But again, this is not a political issue. This is very simple. And really, the story is, let's go reappropriate $500 billion. I mean, corporations don't need this money. This has been a great success. We don't need to buy more corporate bonds. The municipal market is working. People are able to borrow lots of money in the markets. As I said, we've only done $25 billion, and to the extent these need to be reactivated, we have over $800 billion of capacity. So I consider that to be a pretty good bazooka, and Congress trusted us with this money, and we're going to follow the law, and now we're asking Congress, please go reappropriate this money for areas of the economy and people that really need it.
That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. I really, really appreciate you watching. If you don't know anything about me, please check out my video. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. We release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days a week. That's 2 p.m. Also, get your cell phone out, send a text message with the word ignition or with the word time to 70,000, that's 70000, and you'll get added to SMS alerts list moving forward. You can also, if you want, get on our email list. Simply go to ignitiontime.com/alerts. That's ignitiontime.com/alerts, and you'll get added to our email list going forward. I hope you learned something new from this video. You can also follow us on Instagram. Simply go to ignition_time on Instagram. That's our Instagram handle, and you can get exclusive news and content from us on Instagram. You can also get breaking news alerts from us on Twitter. So make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is also ignition_time. That's ignition_time. Now keep in mind, sometimes YouTube does not always send out notifications on time. That happens with technology. So all you have to do is simply bookmark youtube.com/ignition time. That's youtube.com/ignition time. And then you can visit the homepage of our channel and watch our videos at any point in time that you want. As always, you'll find the links to all our resources in the description section below. That's a best practice that we always follow. Please comment below and engage with our community, because we have a vibrant, we have a respectful, a bipartisan, and intelligent, a growing community. So definitely become a part of our community. If you learned something new from this video, please consider sharing this video with friends and family. That really helps out the YouTube algorithm. And please gently click the like button, because that tells YouTube that you found this video helpful. All you have to do is gently tap that button, and that is a vote of confidence in us, and that's your vote of support for all the efforts we put in. Also, please subscribe if you want breaking news and important information like this, and please enable notifications so you get alerts from our channel moving forward. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Thank you. Bye.